there is a huge number of boxing fans who regard Deontay Wilder as not only a hype job who's protected, but also a complete joke who can't fight and is literally shit. These are the type of comments that I'm seeing all over the internet. They're saying that Deontay Wilder cannot fight to save his life. And the first time he gets put in the ring against anyone with a pulse, he's going to get poleaxed. And one of the main reasons that people give for Deontay Wilder being such a joke, apart from the fact that they say he's got horrible technique and his legs are too skinny. These are some of the quotes I'm giving you from what people are saying on the internet. He's uncoordinated. He's got no chin. He is wild with his punches. He windmills. They say all types of stuff about him. And there's a great deal of hate, just out and out hate for Deontay Wilder. There's a lot of people who just, not even Polish, not even anything to do with Poland, but they wanted to see Wilder get knocked out against Szpilka. And one of the biggest bones of contention that people seem to have about Wilder is his level of competition, especially after becoming champion, although he was being ridiculed for his level of competition even before he was champion. But since he's become champion, he beat Berman Stavern in a perfectly legitimate win, but he got no credit from that. People were just coming up with excuses. When David Haye uses his toe as an excuse, nobody accepts it. But when Berman Stavern says he was dehydrated against Deontay Wilder and uses that as an excuse for losing, all of a sudden everyone accepts Berman Stavern's excuse and they just want to continue bashing Deontay Wilder. Okay, well, boxing fans have short memories. One of the guys who Deontay Wilder is being accused of avoiding is Alexander Povetkin. Everyone, or the majority of people, seem to be saying that Povetkin will destroy Deontay Wilder and that is not even a competitive fight. So many people are saying this. Well, I've mentioned before, Povetkin could have had the fight this month in January 2016, but he opted not to take it. And that's the only reason the Szpilka fight took place. That's the reason why the Szpilka fight was arranged so hastily, because Povetkin decided not to take his mandatory in January and asked for an extension so he can take it a little later. He was cut, even though it wasn't a bad cut, he was cut against Mariusz Wax. So, okay, fair enough. Whatever the case may be, let's rewind back in time to when Alexander Povetkin was WBA heavyweight champion. He won the title from Ruslan Chagayev. Ruslan Chagayev is essentially a fat cruiserweight. Essentially what he is. He's a decent fighter, but nothing special. Is Ruslan Chagayev any better than Berman Stavern? I would say no. I would say him and Stavern are on a similar type of level. Okay? And if, in my opinion, Wilder beat Stavern much more convincingly than Povetkin beat Chagayev. For Povetkin's first defense of his title, he fought a 40-year-old career sparring partner called Cedric Boswell. And when I say a career sparring partner, I'm not trying to be disrespectful. Cedric Boswell literally was a career sparring partner. His career was primarily in the gym as a sparring partner, not in the ring conducting professional fights. He was a sparring partner for Lennox Lewis way back in the days, Cedric Boswell. That was Alexander Povetkin's first defense of his WBA strap. Cedric Boswell, I can tell you now, was definitely not as good as Artur Szpilka. And I don't think he was even as good as Johan Dupar. As far as Carlos Molina, maybe him and Molina were on a similar type of level, although they're different type of fighters. Nonetheless, Povetkin's second defense of his WBA title was against Marco Huck. Now, Marco Huck, as we know, is a good fighter, but Marco Huck was a cruiserweight who was, fought Povetkin as a voluntary defense for Povetkin. How on earth he managed to just move straight up and get a top 10, top 15 ranking is beyond me, but he managed to do that. Povetkin gave him a shot. And many people felt that Marco Huck, a cruiserweight, a guy who'd never fought at heavyweight before in his career and hasn't since, many people felt that Marco Huck actually beat Povetkin. That's right. Now, Deontay Wilder, some people maybe felt he was behind on points against Szpilka, but he eventually closed the show and left no doubt about who the winner was by knocking Szpilka out cold. And in my opinion, Szpilka as a heavyweight is far more proven than Marco Huck as a heavyweight. And I would take Szpilka, certainly the Szpilka before the Wilder defeat, because you don't know what type of psychological scars are going to be left from such a devastating knockout defeat on Artur Szpilka's mind. But certainly the Szpilka who fought Wilder up until that punch landed, I would take that guy to beat Marco Huck at heavyweight. In my opinion, you know, there's no difference in levels in terms of heavyweights, or not much, between Szpilka and Marco Huck. And that's the guy that Povetkin fought in his second defense. There was far more credible heavyweights out there for Povetkin to fight in a second defense of his title than Marco Huck. But he fought Marco Huck anyway. Okay? Just in case you got a short memory. And before I move on to Povetkin's third and fourth defenses of his heavyweight title, lest we forget that Tyson Fury wanted to fight Povetkin. The Fury team, Mick Hennessy, made several approaches to the Povetkin team trying to get a title shot when Povetkin was WBA champion. Guess what, people? Povetkin didn't want to know. He had a perfectly credible heavyweight contender there in Tyson Fury, who he could have fought when he was WBA champion, but he didn't want it. He wanted to fight people like Cedric Boswell, Marco Huck, and these other two guys I'll get onto. His third defense of the WBA strap, who did Povetkin fight? He fought an absolutely washed up beyond belief 40-something-year-old Hasim Rahman. That's who he fought. I mean, good God. Rahman was so washed up, so old, you knew this was going to be a complete mismatch. Just seeing the interviews with Hasim Rahman before the fight, looking how old and jaded he looked. I mean, come on. And he blew Rahman out in a couple rounds. You are not going to sit there and tell me that that version of Hasim Rahman was any tougher than Johan Dupar or Artur Szpilka. No way. I would tell you to go fuck yourself if you tried to say that. I'm telling you right now, Szpilka and Dupar were a better challenge for anyone than that ancient, archaic version of Hasim Rahman that Povetkin fought. And the fourth defense of Povetkin's WBA title was a guy called, I believe it was Warzik. Was he a Polish guy? Some unknown Polish heavyweight contender who was unbeaten, but nobody's ever heard of him. Correct me if I'm wrong. I believe he's Polish. Nobody's ever heard of him before or since. Povetkin, blew him out. Right? Now, people, please. That was 4 fights that Povetkin had when he was WBA heavyweight champion, where he was fighting basically nobody. The best guy he fought was Marco Huck, who was a cruiserweight, for God's sake. During that time, yes, there was a few people saying Povetkin needs to step up his level of competition. He's looking like a bit of a joke now. There were some critics, no question. But he was being protected by his team, who didn't want to take any risks with him until they'd cashed in on the big fight with Vladimir Klitschko. And it wasn't until his 5th fight as WBA heavyweight champion that he actually fought somebody legit. Wilder started getting shit from people, a massive bucket load of shit from boxing fans after only his first defense. It's unbelievable the amount of criticism Wilder's getting. It's disproportionate. Do you forget what Povetkin did when he was champion, WBA champion? It seems like you have forgotten, because he weren't fighting nobody legit either. In fact, I would, as I've already explained in this video, I would definitely say that the likes of Szpilka and Johan Dupar are better than the washed up version of Rahman that Povetkin fought. Definitely better than Cedric Boswell and probably better than this Wartzik guy as well. In fact, I would definitely say they're better than this Wartzik guy too. Okay, it's only Hook that you could maybe make an argument about because of what Hook has done at cruiserweight. But at the end of the day, Hook is a guy who was knocked out by Steve Cunningham, for God's sake. A guy who was recently stopped by Glavatsky, another Polish southpaw, since we're talking about Artur Szpilka, who's a Polish southpaw. Okay, so you need to ease back with all this Deontay Wilder criticism, man. Just cast your minds back to what Povetkin was doing when he was a title holder. He wasn't doing anything special. Yeah, and I know he's improved since then, but my point being, first time title holder, you know, geez, there seems to be far more pressure on Wilder than there was on other people. And yes, I know Povetkin fought legitimate fighters before he was a title holder. Fair enough, he did beat people like Eddie Chambers and what have you. But while he was title holder, he was fighting nobody. Yeah, he was just waiting for his fight against Klitschko. In fact, when he was with Teddy Atlas was openly saying that he didn't want the Klitschko fight for Povetkin, that he was holding Povetkin back and he didn't want to go for that fight because he didn't really feel like he could win it, basically. Also, let me remind you, when David Haye was WBA heavyweight champion, he beat Nikolai Valoev. Are you going to sit there and tell me that Nikolai Valoev is leagues and leagues above Berman Stavern? I certainly don't think he is. If you think Valoev's a bit better than Stavern or Stavern's a bit better than Valoev, cool, I can entertain that. But you're not going to tell me that Valoev was leagues and leagues above Berman Stavern. No way. Yeah? So, in David Haye's first defense as WBA champion, who did he fight? Well, he fought his mandatory, fair enough, mandatory, John Ruiz. Did John Ruiz deserve to be mandatory at the time? Hell no. This was another, 39-year-old man, totally past his prime and washed up. In fact, he retired after that fight because he knew that he was finished as a fighter. David Haye took, 9 rounds to get rid of him? A guy who was wiped out in one round in about 25 seconds in his prime by David Tua. Right? So let's just put that in perspective, people. Then David Haye fought Audley Harrison in his second defense of the title. Unbelievable. And remember, all this was happening at a very slow pace. David Haye's reign as WBA heavyweight champion was stretched out over a long period. Haye was a very inactive champion. He was deliberately not staying active because he didn't want to fight all the top contenders out there. And this guy managed to get Audley Harrison in as a voluntary. Unbelievable. You are not going to sit there with a straight face and try and tell me that Audley Harrison is better than Artur Szpilka or Johan Dupar, probably not even Carlos Molina, or not Carlos Molina. What was the guy? Eric Molina. Eric Molina, Audley Harrison, they're probably close in levels. But certainly Szpilka and Dupar are definitely better than Audley Harrison. Give me a break. And this is the great haymaker that so many of you are jumping on his dick again ever since he beat this Mark Damori guy. So it's cool to criticize anybody. As I always say, no fighter is below praise and no fighter is above criticism. And that goes for Wilder too. But let's just put things in perspective, people. Yeah? Let's put things in perspective. He's not doing anything that Alexander Povetkin didn't do when he was a title holder. He's not doing anything that David Haye didn't do when he was a title holder. Or how about we move down to light heavyweight and talk about Sergey Kovalev? Who the hell did Sergey Kovalev fight after he beat Nathan Cleverly? He had two or three defenses against people you have never heard of. I mean, you might have heard of Ismail Salak, who is not a particularly good fighter. He fought him. I believe that was Kovalev's first defense. Then he fought a couple guys you've literally never heard of before or since. Nobody was lambasting Sergey Kovalev for that. For not fighting any legitimate fighters for his first 3 defenses until he eventually fought Hopkins in his 4th. So, look, people, again, put things in perspective, take time, take a step back, and let's not go overboard here with Deontay Wilder. Yeah? Be fair. That's all I'm saying to people. Be fair. Now, in terms of how good Wilder is as a fighter, because so many people believe Wilder is just straight trash. I feel like we're going through the Tyson Fury thing all over again. When I first started doing YouTube back in, I think it was 2009, 2010, around then on my old channel, I started doing videos. From very early on in Tyson Fury's career, I was saying that Tyson Fury's got potential and there's a lot of things about him that impress me. And there was one particular individual who was a female, actually, who used to come to my channel, because back in the days, the YouTube channel layout used to be different for those of you who remember. And your YouTube channel was more like a website where people could stay on your channel. You know, you could have a custom background and all this other stuff. And there was a comment section which was front and center. You could have it front and center on your channel. So as soon as people go straight to your channel, they see the big comment section where anyone can leave comments, and they're live, they're updated live. So this girl who was subscribed to me at the time, she was always commenting, leaving comments on my channel, not just the videos, but the channel itself, in the comment section, saying, why do you rate Fury? He's garbage. He's uncoordinated. He's this, that, and the other. And she was one of the first Fury naysayers that I encountered on my channel. And the more fights Fury had, the more people I kept encountering, even after the Kevin Johnson fight. That's the fight that really convinced me that Fury had something, was the Kevin Johnson fight. I was very impressed with him in that fight. And I'm sure my post-fight video for the Kevin Johnson fight is still up. You can go watch that. And you can see how impressed I was with him. And as impressed as I was, there were people in the comments of that video saying, I don't know what the hell you're looking at, man. Tyson Fury is shit. He's a fat, mouthy gypsy who's going to get himself knocked out as soon as he fights anyone decent. Fury ended up getting dropped by people like Nevin Pikage. He obviously struggled with John McDermott. He got dropped by Steve Cunningham, who, as we know, is a cruiserweight who can't punch. And all these things combined were leading the vast majority of boxing fans to say Tyson Fury was absolute garbage. It's not until maybe the last 10 months or so that I've noticed a shift in the amount of people who started to believe in Tyson Fury. Particularly once the Vladimir fight was signed, I noticed a lot more people. No, in fact, I think it was after the David Haye fights got cancelled. Okay, because leading up to the David Haye fight, remember, David Haye was the overwhelming favorite, not just with the bookies, but the majority of boxing fans were saying David Haye is going to destroy Tyson Fury. He's going to annihilate him. Most people were saying, I'm telling you, I remember very clearly people saying David Haye is going to knock Tyson Fury out inside 3 rounds. It's not even competitive. This is what the majority of people were saying. And it's not until those 2 fights were cancelled that I started noticing a slight shift in the way people were behaving towards Tyson Fury, where there was slightly more people saying, actually, Tyson Fury maybe has some ability, but still, for the most part, most people were saying he was not very good, he was shit, and that Vladimir Klitschko would destroy him easily. Now, as you know, I picked Vladimir Klitschko to beat Fury. I thought the fight would go long. I thought maybe Vladimir Klitschko would catch up to Fury late in the fight, maybe get a late stoppage or win on points. That obviously didn't happen. But all along, and I've been consistent throughout the years that I've been covering Tyson Fury on my channel, all along I said this guy is a problem for Vladimir. Yeah, I obviously didn't say he was going to beat Vlad, but I said this guy is a good fighter. He's not shit like everyone's saying he is. He does have good ability, and I'm impressed by a lot of the things that Tyson Fury does. After the Vladimir fight, all of those people who were saying Tyson Fury was straight garbage, those people have done one of two things. One of two things. They've either totally disappeared from YouTube, and that happens a lot, or the other people have done a complete 180, and they're acting as though they knew Tyson Fury was good all along. Yeah, after all these years of saying the guy was absolute trash, now he beats Vladimir and they're like, oh yeah, I've always thought Tyson Fury was good. What a complete joke. And those very same people whose lack of understanding of boxing was exposed by Fury's performance against Klitschko, those people, and also other people, strangely enough, I've seen some Fury supporters doing this. They're now applying that same foolish attitude to Deontay Wilder. Wilder can't fight. Wilder's garbage. He's got chicken legs. He's this, that. I mean, all this stuff that is totally irrelevant. Every fighter has got weaknesses. Every fighter has got strengths. Yes, Deontay Wilder makes technical mistakes. But one of the mistakes that you guys make, right? You guys out there who are saying Wilder's garbage, one of the mistakes that you guys make is you think that technical ability is all, is king in boxing. No. Wilder has already in his career beaten people who are technically better than he is, who don't make, who don't lunge, who don't windmill as much as he does. Okay, and he does occasionally windmill, particularly when he gets a fighter hurt. But there was nothing windmilly about the punch that knocked Artur Szpilka into next week. Yeah, that was a beautiful short right hand. And most of his right hands that he throws, Deontay Wilder, are straight, but people hone in on the ones that are wild that he throws every now and then. You look at a guy like George Foreman, when he was in his prime, horrible technique, swinging all over the damn place. You want to talk about windmilling? I can show you loads of George Foreman fights where he's windmilling. People make the mistake again and again in boxing where they hone in obsessively on a guy's weaknesses or his perceived weaknesses and totally ignore how formidable his strengths are. And I'm here to tell you right now, all these fighters out there, you got, fighters like Bryant Jennings, who was poking fun at Deontay Wilder up until recently. I mean, up until he got knocked out by Ortiz, he was poking fun at Wilder and all this kind of stuff. Let me tell you right now, if Bryant Jennings got hit with that right hand that Szpilka got hit with, he wouldn't be laughing no more. Let me assure you of that. Yeah, it's, windmill Wilder's all, it's all funny. It's all a joke until he cracks you on the chin. Then it's not funny no more. Then the sudden realization kicks in that actually this guy is lethal with that right hand. And not only that, another thing people are underestimating about Wilder is this guy's fast. Yes, he had trouble with Szpilka. Let me tell you, Szpilka fought out of his skin against Wilder. I was very impressed with Szpilka's movement and his energy. Constantly in and out of range, and he was never allowing Wilder to get set to throw the right hand the way he wanted to throw it. And when he eventually caught Szpilka, it's when he drew Szpilka in. Because before, he was the one going looking for the right hand, and the right hand wasn't coming. He landed it a few times, but he never landed it with full force at the optimum range to get maximum effect. And it wasn't until he stopped looking for Szpilka and allowed Szpilka to come to him that he was able to land the shot with full force, and you saw the effect. It was dramatic. But yeah, Szpilka's movement was very impressive. Okay, a lot of these other guys out there who they're talking about Wilder fighting like Povetkin, you think Povetkin can move like Szpilka to offset Wilder's right hand the way that Szpilka did? I've never seen Povetkin move like that in my life. In Povetkin's whole career, there's no fight where he's bouncing around for 9.5 rounds like Artur Szpilka. I've never seen him do that. Let me tell you something, he can't do that. Yeah? Povetkin has got strengths which Szpilka don't have. Yeah, Povetkin can do certain things that Szpilka can't do. He can do certain things better than Szpilka, but Szpilka can do certain things better than him. Wilder himself can do certain things better than Povetkin, and Povetkin can do certain things better than Wilder. This is why they say styles make fights. Okay, so anyone looking at the Szpilka fight and thinking, well, Szpilka managed to outbox Wilder for long stretches of the fight and make it very difficult for Wilder to land his right hand. Therefore, Povetkin's going to do even better than that. I mean, that is a ridiculously stupid thing to say. You can't base what Povetkin's going to do on what Szpilka did, because Szpilka stylistically is a totally different kind of fighter than Povetkin. Szpilka's a southpaw for one. He was moving all over the damn place like the heavyweight version of Manny Pacquiao. He was like the Energizer Bunny in there. He never stood still for a second hardly until the later rounds. Okay, when he started to slow down a bit. Povetkin ain't going to move like that. Povetkin can't move like that. He's not going to be able to nullify Wilder's right hand as effectively for as long as Szpilka did. He's just not going to be able to. Will he be more dangerous offensively than Szpilka? Yes, definitely. But I also believe he'll be more vulnerable to Deontay Wilder's right hand than Szpilka was. Anyway, we'll cross that Povetkin bridge when we get to it. But that's the fight that Wilder says he's going to have next. We'll see what happens. I've already talked about the possibility of Wilder fighting Charles Martin in a unification, with Povetkin possibly accepting step-aside money to allow it to take place. We'll see what happens there. But my point being, I personally believe that Deontay Wilder will beat some of the top names in boxing. He will. Will he lose? Of course he will. Most of the greatest fighters in history have lost. You know, people talking about Wilder's going to get exposed. Well, what does it mean to get exposed? That you lose a fight? Does losing a fight mean you get exposed? Was Lennox Lewis exposed when he lost to Oliver McCall? Was he exposed when he lost to Hasim Rahman? Because he came back and beat much better fighters than McCall and Rahman and avenged both those defeats anyway. So the Oliver McCall loss does not define Lennox Lewis's legacy. He went on to beat much better fighters than Oliver McCall. So, you know, there you have it. You look at Bernard Hopkins. I believe he lost his first professional fight. Sugar Ray Robinson lost his first, was it his first amateur fight or his first professional? I can't remember, but Sugar Ray Robinson even lost when he first started boxing. Marvin Hagler lost early fights. Was he exposed, Marvin Hagler, when he lost to those two journeymen early in his career? Was he exposed? I mean, people, you know, when you look at a fighter, you have to look at the total package, his strengths and his weaknesses. And what I see in Wilder is the kind of athleticism and foot speed, not just the hand speed, the foot speed, that's going to make it very difficult for a shorter fighter, particularly a more flat-footed, shorter fighter, to get to him. A guy like Szpilka, who's a tricky southpaw, who's moving in and out, yeah, he gave Wilder plenty of problems. But a guy like Povetkin, or a Derek Chisora type of guy, who's going to come straight forward, you know, fairly flat-footed, I think it's going to be very difficult for a guy, you know, 6'1", 6'2", pressure fighter to get to Deontay Wilder. I really believe that. The guys who I'd pick over Wilder right now are the bigger guys, the taller guys, who are not going to have so much problems getting to him because they can compete with him in terms of height and reach and whatnot. But the shorter guys, I think they're going to find it very difficult with Wilder because, as I say, his foot speed is very good for a guy of his height. And that's because of the fact that he's not as heavy as a lot of the other tall guys out there. He's only around 228. So, yeah, I think he will beat some of the top names out there before it's all over. And even then, the naysayers at the moment, the guys who are saying Wilder is a joke and he's total garbage, they're either going to disappear from the internet for a while, until it all blows over, or they're going to turn around and act as though they knew Wilder was good from the very beginning. That's what these clowns are going to do. Right? I've seen it all before. All right. So what I'm telling you now is, I know this is a long video, so shout out to anyone that made it to the end. I'm about to close this out. Wilder is a good fighter and he has ability. All this windmilling and his chicken legs and all this other stuff is, it may be funny banter, but the reality is this guy has got fast hands for a big man, fast feet, a wicked straight right hand, which if it connects clean on your chin, unless you're someone like Marius Wack or, you know, someone very, very abnormally durable, you are going down. Yeah. Berman-Stavern's got a good chin. Let me tell you something about the Berman-Stavern fight. Berman-Stavern has got a crab-like defense. He keeps his hands up and his chin down. He very rarely, if at all, in the 12 rounds against Wilder, got cracked clean on the chin the way that Artur Szpilka did. He was half blocking the shots, or he had his chin down. He was, you know, riding the shots, but he still got hurt a number of times against Wilder. You never saw Chris Arreola hurt him like that. You know, I know Stavern got stopped early in his career against Demetrius King. That was a bullshit stoppage. Stavern wasn't even hurt. Go watch the fight. Anyway, long story short, we'll see how the Wilder career unfolds, but he's going to prove a lot of you guys wrong. Trust me. I'm not saying he's an all-time great and nothing like that, but he's a lot better than most of you guys are giving him credit for. So, yeah. Anyway, it's your boy Hatman. I'm out.